olive oil, rotten fruit. He closed his eyes happily and lived for an instant in a purely olfactory world. The distant past returned. What part of it, he could not decide. The chauffeur, whose seat the professor shared, spoke to him without taking his eyes from the road. "Vous êtes géologue?" "A geologist? Ah, no, I'm a linguist." "There are no languages here, only dialects." "Exactly. I'm making a survey of variations on Maghrebi." The chauffeur was scornful. "Keep on going south," he said. "You'll find some languages you never heard of before." As they drove through the town gate, the usual swarm of urchins rose up out of the dust and ran screaming beside the bus. The professor folded his dark glasses, put them in his pocket, and as soon as the vehicle had come to a standstill, he jumped out, pushing his way through the indignant boys who clutched at his luggage in vain, and walked quickly into the Grand Hotel Saharien. Out of its 8 rooms, there were 2 available, one facing the market, and the other, a smaller and cheaper one, giving onto a tiny yard full of refuse and barrels, where 2 gazelles wandered about. He took the smaller room, and pouring the entire pitcher of water into the tin basin, began to wash the grit from his face and ears. The afterglow was nearly gone from the sky, and the pinkness in objects was disappearing, almost as he watched. He lit the carbide lamp and winced at its odor. After dinner, the professor walked slowly through the streets to Hassan Rahmani's cafe, whose back room hung hazardously out above the river. The entrance was very low, and he had to bend down slightly to get in. A man was tending the fire. There was one guest sipping tea. The Kaweji tried to make him take a seat at the other table in the front room, but the professor walked airily ahead into the back room and sat down. The moon was shining through the reed latticework, and there was not a sound outside but the occasional distant bark of a dog. He changed tables so he could see the river. It was dry, but there was a pool here and there that reflected the bright night sky. The Kaweji came in and wiped off the table. "Does this cafe still belong to Hassan Rahmani?" he asked him in the Maghrebi he had taken 4 years to learn. The man replied in bad French. "He is deceased." "Deceased?" repeated the professor, without noticing the absurdity of the word. "Really? When?" "I don't know," said the Kaweji. "Want tea?" "Yes, but I don't understand." The man was already out of the room, fanning the fire. The professor sat still, feeling lonely and arguing with himself that to do so was ridiculous. Soon, the Kaweji returned with the tea. He paid him and gave him an enormous tip, for which he received a grave bow. "Tell me," he said, as the other started away, "can one still get those little boxes made from camel udders?" The man looked angry. "Sometimes the Regibat bring in those things. We do not buy them here." Then, insolently, in Arabic, "And why a camel udder box?" "Because I like them," retorted the professor. And then, because he was feeling a little exalted, he added, "I like them so much, I want to make a collection of them, and I will pay you 10 francs for every one you can get me." "Mstash," said the Kaweji, opening his left hand rapidly 3 times in succession. "Never. 10. "Not possible. But wait until later and come with me. You can give me what you like, and you will get camel udder boxes if there are any." He went out into the front room, leaving the professor to drink his tea and listen to the growing chorus of dogs that barked and howled as the moon rose higher into the sky. A group of customers came into the front room and sat talking for an hour or so. When they had left, the Kaweji put out the fire and stood in the doorway, putting on his burnous. "Come," he said. Outside in the street, there was very little movement. The booths were all closed, and the only light came from the moon. An occasional pedestrian passed and grunted a brief greeting.